but there's a huge timing difference. It is almost 11 p.m. in the UK. There's a huge time difference. Adna, do you want to have your opinion about this? How do you feel about the UN being labelled as corrupt, as well as the effect that a blue economy will have in Somaliland if it was to go through? And when you see organizations like the UN or the African Union, East African Community, IGAD, all organizations that kind of almost don't recognize Somaliland, organizations that um, do not look after Somaliland's interest or acknowledge Somaliland's existence, are the same organizations that are trying to push for this blue economy, and they're trying to push for a and I think they're trying to push for the blue economy without acknowledging and the civilians, the Somalilanders that live there, us, the indigenous people, and as enticing as it sounds, the blue economy, it will not benefit Somalilanders, but actually benefit a group that have committed atrocities within Somaliland and do not respect or and acknowledge Somaliland. When you think about Somalia, not only has it committed a serious genocide throughout from 1960 to 1991, but it does continue to support terrorist groups within the eastern region of Somaliland, Las Anod region. We're aware that they were supporting those groups, and then recently, with the visit of the Prime Minister of Somalia to the region, they've brought weapons that they were supposed to be fighting Al Shabaab with. They brought these weapons to Somalia to fight our nomads and target our nomads. These are the very groups that have gone through what you call the Isaac genocide and have suffered, are then again, almost 30 years later, are experiencing the same trauma and another generation, another genocide. Adna, welcome. How do you feel about this?
Thank you, Miss Awdallah. Assalamu alaikum for opening this space for us. I see Burakid here. I hope he'll be willing to contribute. Yes, I think the UN has broken its own charter. For example, Charter number 1, Article 1 or 2, I think. The UN has breached its own charter on peace. For example, the UN has turned its back on Somaliland, one of the most peaceful nations in Africa. We know that the UN falsely, I'm not sure if the UN hid the existence of Somaliland deliberately, but we know for sure that Somalia, that is a member state of the UN, uses Somaliland's credentials to murder Somalilanders, to marginalize Somalilanders, and this is with the blessing of the United Nations. So as you can hear from my voice, I'm very disappointed with the United Nations because it is not an equitable organization. Thank you, Ms. Aldal.
Thank you, Adna. I was seeing the Senator of Foreign Relationships Committee Chairman. Unfortunately, doesn't have his name there. Oh, his name is Jim Richard. Talk about the effects that the corruption within the UN, and I think sometimes people forget the effects that it has on Somalilanders, on human lives on the ground. We forget that as corrupt as it is, and maybe at the moment it's pushing whatever China wants, that somehow the world is not aware. And this is the bit that makes me sad as a Somalilander citizen. I think our existence is almost hidden, so our problems aren't addressed. And when you think, I mean, you can see America complain about how corrupt the UN is. You can imagine a group of people that are completely hidden, a group of people that have experienced genocide, and a region that is as big as England and Wales, a place that has gained recognition from that place that has gained recognition from all permanent UN members, permanent members of the UN Security Council, as well as that gained independence from Britain. At the same time, is hidden, and I think people don't understand actually don't know about Somaliland, but when you see an American official, a senior official, recognize the corruption that the UN has and or has committed, but they're not aware of the amount of corruption that's been happening within Somaliland with that the UN has committed against Somaliland with the blessing. Sorry, the amount of atrocities that Somalia has been able to commit within Somaliland with the blessing of the UN or organizations like the UN or the African Union. It does make us sad, but at the same time, I'm happy that the Americans are realizing that this institution is not functioning and it needs to be defunded. I completely support that. I think the idea of the UN is for it to hold international law and to to look after the interest of everyone and treat everyone equally, look after human rights. But I feel like they are failing on that field. Um, so yes, I'm not completely prepared. I think I was very excited when I've seen the tweets from Elon Musk and the senator, and I think I wanted to open this space to just. It felt like we've been heard, although I know it's nothing to do with Somaliland. It's just at least other groups, other citizens of the world, or the Americans are feeling or are understanding how corrupt the UN is. It's kind of it's good. It's a feel good moment. But Adna, do you want to give everyone a background of what blue market is? Sorry, blue economy is, and how it will affect Somaliland?
Thank you, Miss Alval, again for this space. I think it's now it is in our interest as citizens of Somaliland to tell the world of our plight. We see that mighty countries like the United States of America, Senator Rich today talked about the bias of the UN. So it's upon us, and I'm very happy that you opened this space. I'm hoping activists such as Burakid is able to take the microphone and also give us his take on what the UN has done to Somaliland. Because Somaliland is hidden and it's been falsely labeled a de facto state, although Somaliland is a fully fledged de jure state with no evidence that she has forfeited her status of 26 June 1960, Somaliland is not part of any integration bloc, such as the African Union, such as the East African Community, such as the Horn of Africa Initiative and IGAD. So when we talk about a blue economy, it always pertains to countries that are in this bloc. So we have realized, because the African Bank, the IMF, I'm not sure about the African Bank, but I know the IMF and the World Bank are usually part of these initiatives. We are starting to suspect that because Somaliland is not part of these blocks, but somehow it's included in this blue economy, it's another way of exploiting Somaliland's vulnerability. It's another way of siphoning Somaliland resources to outside entities and further to marginalize the people of Somaliland. So we are going to write to our senators, we are going to write to all pertinent politicians and representatives and human rights organizations, telling them that we have no one assisting us. It seems like powerful entities, men like Antonio Guterres of the United Nations, the head of the African Union, have come together to further marginalize the people of Somaliland. And this is an illegal act, because we know that illegal acts do not make law. Thank you, Ms. Audal.
Thank you so much, Adna. I was just reading about blue economy as well in terms of fishing, fishes, and marine resources. It says Somalia, with international backing, claims access to maritime zone of Somaliland coast. which will include like rich fish, oil, and natural gases, revenue from illegal, I think Somaliland guards do protect our region anyway, but those are things that they'll benefit. The sad part with this is that this will create a lot of jobs. It will, it's very enticing, but the indigenous people, the Somalilanders will not benefit from this. Will just be another way to control and imply an extra genocide. You can see the many of the Somali politicians that would refer to Somaliland as secessionists, and will refer to Somaliland will call Somaliland as secessionists. Will then call Somaliland things like it's time to end those people, using this genocidal language without consequences. Whether it's Fiqi, their foreign minister, currently their minister of defense, who would use those kind of language. And when you think about it, he's actually targeting the very group that have gone through genocide, the Isaac people, because he'll then talk about he implied people from my area, for example, although he said to put the pen down and take a gun. We are from a very peaceful, we are Somalilanders, we live in a very peaceful region, peaceful, but with lack of opportunity, lack of jobs. We are we live in a place where there's an economical sanction. 75% of under 30s do not have jobs in Somaliland. This is not to say the people that are older than 30 have jobs. They don't. But for example, new graduates, younger people, there's nothing there. Somaliland is a large country with so much resources, but because of this sanctions that we are facing, I don't know why we're being punished. I don't know how a country that's been occupied and then has gone through genocide during that time is still being punished by the international community. It talks about, when I read this, blue economy is a good idea, but it's not a good idea when you're going to give it to a genocidal entity, when you're going to give it to an entity that doesn't even recognize our people, an entity that today is funding and it's providing weapons to the eastern region of Somaliland, where our nomads are being killed. Imagine if continuing to fund these people. You think about Somalia. Somalia is a country where the Minister of Defense is an Al-Shabaab. The religious minister is the co-founder of Al-Shabaab. And I always pray to God that, like, I mean, as activists, we have a limited, we can sit here and shout and talk, and yes, there is a power with the people. We will continue to do this. But when I see organizations like the UN or the African Union or even America, and I'm glad America has stopped their aid, are funding Somalia, a regime that that genuinely is Al-Shabaab. So there is no difference between the two. If you are saying you're going to fight Al-Shabaab, but you have your religious minister is Al-Shabaab, I mean, who are they lying to? In here also, it also talks about foreign fishing agreement. It talks about, yeah, he goes strategic ports, and it talks about Somaliland port of Berbera, vital, but there's a regional complication, e.g. Djibouti, which fears Berbera's rise. So you know, so there's Somalia on one side, there's the Djibouti that seems to be, a dictatorship that seems to not want for Somalilanders to prosper. So to have this here and talk about, oh yes, we want to use Somaliland, we want to use Berbera, but we definitely don't want it to be any better than Djibouti. And then it says, and Somalia aligns with the IGAD, African Union, the Gulf states, many block Somaliland's port trade ambition. So all these countries that also want to use our ports, that want to use our resources and our blue economies, are also at the same time um, blocking any trade ambitions that we have. So this is again an economical genocide, and I feel like not America, sorry, I feel like the African Union and the UN, IGAD, these people are just complicit within this genocide, and I think we will not be silent. And I've seen our President Erra speak about this, about blue market, blue economy, and I think was he to sign, if he was to go ahead to sign any of these letters or any of these agreements, there will be some serious consequences. I'll give this to Bra.